Hey everybody, it's Galmadex, and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing my very first traditional draft of Murders at Karlov Manor. Without further ado, let's get this draft started off. Not a super powerful pack one here, honestly. There are very few cards in here that I would ever want to pack one, pick one. Case of the Burning Masks gets the closest. It is a removal spell that can potentially 2-for-1. You can kill one of their creatures, hit your opponent with two of your creatures, and then you will have solved the case in your end step, so you can sacrifice this next turn to cast something out of the top 3 cards of your library. So that could be decent if you can get it to trigger, but it is a little narrow. You need double red to play it, and you really have to solve it for it to be super worth that 3 mana, but it's quite good in the games where you do solve it without much work, so we'll take that. I guess you could pick one, pack one on the job if you're super into go wide aggro out of white, but you've got a pretty high likelihood of getting cut off of that lately because, you know, the jig is up. Everybody knows that white is the best color in the format. So pack one, pick number 2 now. We've got 2 really sweet options in red, and those are the easiest follow-ups to the Case of the Burning Masks. There's a Reckless Detective, which gets us rolling nice and quickly and sets up our draws for the rest of the game, discarding whatever we don't need to draw a card and get +2/+0. We've also got Person of Interest, which is great in the go wide aggro, particularly awesome in that Boros Menace in this format. I think I'm going to go for the Reckless Detective. Again, it's a slightly more flexible card, and it's the cheaper card. It's a little bit harder to come by really good 2-mana creatures in this format than it is solid stuff at 3 mana plus, like Person of Interest, so I'll take the Reckless Detective here. If you're a much bolder drafter than me, you could hop into a second color this early for Case of the Locked Hothouse, but that requires you to play a really defensive deck that can get to 7 lands on board consistently, which can be a little hard. Pick number 3, no white cards in this pack already, so not a great sign for Boros in particular, but red still looks okay. We can take a shock here and completely cut red off of anybody on our left out of this pack. It's a reasonable option here, but the strongest card in the pack is a Killer Among Us, so we could push into green-red here. With this card, it's 5 mana for a 4/4 and 2 1/1s essentially. It's got some extra counterplay to it that's kind of fun, but for the most part, that's how you should read the card. That is the better card, but Shock is still quite good and just keeps us to 1 color for now. I guess we already have 1 removal spell, which isn't bad. Is a Killer Among Us worth the dip into the secondary color? It probably is, honestly. We'll take the Killer Among Us here. Pick number 4, yet again, no white, as you expect to see in the modern era of drafting this format, now that it is quote-unquote solved. We've got a red herring here, which is good if we end up aggressive, and we're pretty likely to end up aggressive being in red here. Red-green's a perfectly aggressive strategy. You just play the beefiest green creatures you can find along with some cheap combat tricks out of that color, and red, you get all your cheap creatures on curve out of that. So take the red herring here. I think that's a reasonable pickup for the way our deck is headed. Pick number 5. Nothing much in red and literally nothing in green out of this pack, so that's kind of sad. It's a pretty empty pack for the most part. There's some mediocre removal with Slice from the Shadows. It's always going to be more expensive than what you're killing for the most part, unless you're killing a disguise card. Thoroughfare is pretty bad fixing because you have to tap an extra land for it if you don't have a bunch of clues to use with it. Setback is a 4 mana 1/1 tempo removal spell, which is a little too expensive. Yeah, a pretty weak pack. I guess we can just take a bystander there. Pick 6, we can take a Tunnel Tipster. Green-red strategy is theoretically about playing a bunch of face downs. It's not looking like what our deck's doing right now, but Tipster certainly has a lot more potential upside than the Innocent Bystander does. Keeps cutting green and red out of the pack here. Alright, pick 7, Tin Street Gossip means green-red disguise. Green-red flip-ups can be the way our deck is headed. Pretty solid card for exactly that archetype and nothing else, because you can jam in for 4 damage and still spend this mana to flip up your cards like your big Riftburst Hellion or your Offender at Larges. I actually like Offender at Large quite a bit in this kind of deck, but I think Tin Street Gossip's probably slightly more important heading into this color pair. And things have worked perfectly, because now we can just get the Offender at Large anyway. I suppose I only have 1 non-creature spell right now, 1 Case of the Burning Masks, so Fanatical Strength. we could absolutely take over the offender, but I think this is probably one of the best disguise cards for green-red disguise. So you don't really want a bunch of like 6 mana flips here, but 5 mana is like right at the sweet spot, especially when you can flip it up and get an additional combat trick out of it, basically. I'm just going to rare draft Kylox for my collection. Like, Knife is borderline playable. Demand Answers is borderline playable, but they're both on the weaker end of filler, so I'd rather just take a rare I don't have a full play set of yet. And if you ever want to check your collection, you can always just hold down the Alt key while you're drafting. Take a Pick Your Poison here for the sideboard, since this is best of 3 draft. There's no universe in which that's ever going to be the right pick, but I'll take a Slime Against Humanity because it's kind of funny. Airtight Alibi. I guess this is an instant speed combat trick, so I'll run it for now, but that'll be the first cut once we find our 24th playable. Alright, pack 2, pick 1. We have gotten pretty lucky here, opening kind of the perfect rare for a red-green disguise aggro deck. We're going to be playing a lot of kind of beefy disguise cards later in the game, and the Pyrotechnic Performer can damage our opponent whenever we're flipping up our big disguise cards. Not only that, but we can just play it as a 2-mana 3/2 and just get attacking with it, which is perfectly reasonable for an aggro deck too. So this Performer looks like exactly what the Doctor ordered for this deck. Pack 2, pick 2. Kind of a miss here. There's basically nothing we want to play. We can sideboard Caught Red-Handed here, I guess. Just so much mana for an active treason, though. I think I'd rather speculate a bit here and take Gleaming Gear Drake, because we are only 4 cards deep into green, 2 of which aren't that good. Like, Airtight Alibi is pretty bad, and then Tipster's not the greatest with what we have right now. So take a Gear Drake speculatively. If we see a bunch of blue, we can head in that direction just because this card is so powerful, so efficient at what it's doing. It's always a 2-for-1 because it gives you that clue, and it often becomes just a really big flyer. So take the Gear Drake there. Alright, still see reasonable green here with Eavesdropper, but more importantly, great red with Shock or Galvanize, which I think has to be the pick here, considering we have 2 non-creature spells right now, one of which we really want to cut. So we get some more non-creatures added to the deck. We have no clues right now. I guess we have 1 red herring, but it doesn't look like we can trigger the Galvanize for 5 damage that often, so Shock might be better. But even 3 damage up front is pretty nice on Galvanize too. I could basically flip a coin between these two, but I guess I'll just go with Shock first. Pack 2, pick 4. Person of Interest is quite reasonable. Get a wide board state for us, but Greenbelt Radical's kind of sweet for a flip-up deck like this, a disguise deck. Like, if we make it to 7 mana, we kind of just win. +1/+1 counter on the entire board, trample on everybody, can end the game. One thing I kind of like about taking Person of Interest here is that the Greenbelt Radical is more likely to wheel. I don't think either of them will come back, because I think there's only like 4 actually good cards in this pack. Person, Binding, Radical, and Monitor. Oh, well, no, there's a Dog Walker too. Maybe it'll come back. I'm still going to take it first, though. Really, really close, as you can tell by going down to the wire, but either of these would have been great pickups, so I will take the Radical there. Pick number 5. Mask Maker, I guess, is fine for green-red disguise, but we currently have 3 disguise creatures. I think we want a really big stack for this to be, like, actively good. Karlov Watchdog's the best card in this pack. That's great for Boros aggro, but we're pretty committed at this point. We're not going to be Boros. I guess I'll take Mask Maker over another red herring. Oh, there's a Boros card again with Market Watch Phantom. You know what? Gadget Technician, even though we're not playing blue, because we care about flipping cards up, is probably a little better than Innocent Bystander. Bystander is mainly just a 2-mana 2/1 that you can play to make sure you have enough aggressive creatures. Okay, I do like Offender at Large yet again, and we don't have enough clues to actually use Cornered Crook consistently, so it's a 5-mana 5/4 with no abilities. This is a 5-mana 5/4 with very good flexible abilities. We can flip it up, or we can top deck it later for extra damage. We can play it face down early, so we can play it as a 3-drop if we don't have the 5 yet. It's way more flexible than a 5/4 with no text. Take another Mask Maker now. Take another Offender at Large over another Cornered Crook. We could take the Tracker again to have the nice little filler 2-drops, but with double Mask Maker in our deck, maybe our disguise cards are our 2-drops. Pick 10. This is back to that pretty awkward kind of empty pack. Pick 11. Felonious Rage maybe gets sided in. Maybe Pick Your Poison gets sided in. We need to find 6 more playables in the final pack, but this looks like a pretty reasonable little Gruul aggro deck. Pretty basic stuff, but super fine in terms of its power level. Nice and flexible mana costs thanks to the disguise cards. Got plenty of 3s and plenty of 5s at the top end. So pack 3, pick 1, probably take the really efficient removal of hard-hitting Question. I do like Loxodon Eavesdropper a lot, get the clue, use the clue to get a Vigilant attack in with this and get a nice 2-for-1 play, but this is nice, cheap removal, and we only have 2 removal spells right now still, so I'll take hard-hitting Question over Eavesdropper. Pack 3, pick 2, another Case of the Burning Masks is fine. It's between that, a Rift Burst Hellion, and a Fanatical Strength. Okay. I think the biggest competition here is definitely Case versus Fanatical Strength. I think a combat trick could go a long way for this kind of deck. Trampling Over can definitely find the lethal in the late game, especially with a death-touching 4/4 off of a Killer Among Us. I think upgrading Airtight Alibi to Fanatical Strength is really tempting, but another burn spell's big too. With just the 3... I'll take the Case, because it's like burn. It's a burn spell and a little bit of card draw, a little bit of value. It could be more advantageous. But now we hit a hard-hitting Question. I'd rather have the 1 Fanatical Strength and a second hard-hitting Question than double Case, double hard-hitting Question. 5 disguise cards. I don't know how great another Tunnel Tipster is in here. I'm like, it's fine. I don't think we need Nervous Gardener. We're not splashing anything in. It's probably just hard-hitting Question over the Tipster. It's the only real competition. But now I am, again, wishing that I had taken the combat trick. Alright, Krenko's good. But if our opponent isn't sacrificing artifacts, this is just a 3-mana 3/3 haste for us. Because again, we have maybe 1 clue token in here. Just a red herring. So it's just a 3-mana 3/3 haste. Unless our opponent actively plays into it, which isn't going to happen that often. And Reckless Detective is just always a really good 2-drop. So I think we actually take Detective over Krenko for this deck. Krenko is like really good in red, white, and red, blue, where white and blue give you a lot of clue tokens. But this is not that. We do not have a lot of clue tokens. All right, another green belt radical for another just absolute game ender when we can flip that up. I suppose that is a plus side to the tipster. It's really helping get to the 7 to end the game with these radicals. Um, 15 creatures, 7 non-creatures. I'd love to take a Fanatical Strength and just make that better than Airtight Alibi, but 4 mana 4/4 Flying Trample is kind of hard to argue with. It's just a good stat line. Just a really good stat line. Shock versus Person of Interest. I'll go wide with a Person of Interest, and this will be the 17th creature. And then that's the deck. Just cut 1 Airtight Alibi and play 17 lands, or cut a land, 16 lands, that's the deck. There's definitely got to be 17 lands. We're trying to flip 7 mana plays and tons of 5-drops too. So take the Person, cut Airtight Alibi, here's our deck. Our main deck. This card sucks. Honestly. It's a 2-mana draw one that's super narrow. I mean, honestly, I think it's more likely I'd play another Bystander, even though I don't think I will. I think that card's just really bad. Is Felonious Rage or Airtight Alibi a better sideboard card? I think Alibi, probably. Both are not super likely to go into the deck, but maybe. Scapegoat or Hellion a better sideboard card? I guess Scapegoat is maybe main deckable over another 3 or 4 drop to speed the deck up, so I should probably take that and consider that as an option. Yeah, this has disguise synergy. Maybe we'll play the laundry. Quadruple Mask Maker. Here we go. Always playing a 2-mana 2/2 face down. We got 44 cards here. I can't imagine Quadruple Mask Maker is right. But a couple of them I don't think is terrible. Bystanders are worse to drop, and we'd still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 2-mana creatures in there. Perfectly reasonable, especially with a 1-drop or 2 in the deck to get going. Then, yeah, plenty of 3s, plenty of 4s, and then plenty of 5s and up off of these flips. Solid curve here. I do wish I had grabbed some combat tricks. Those would go a long way, helping the Mask Makers keep going. Keep getting in. I don't know. They would help them not die as they send in for attacks to get the cost reductions going. They'd also help us finish the game with just a big trample swing later. But I think I just cut these 4 and boom, that's our deck. Yeah, simple stuff here, but here's our Gruul aggro build. Alright, here's a look at our finished deck list for today. We're on a Gruul aggro deck, which is kind of about just curving out with good creatures and then flipping up some big finishers in the end game. So we've got 1-drop Scapegoat and some Mask Makers to help get these disguise cards going a little bit quicker. We've got Pyrotechnic Performer, so that if we're flipping up disguise cards, we're getting a bunch of extra damage in, but we can also just jam it out as a 2-mana 3/2. We have Detectives to set up our draws and jam down as 2-mana 2/3s and stuff. Tunnel Tipster and Tin Street Gossip can help us ramp into flipping up our very expensive disguise cards. And of course, turn 3, we're always playing our face down 2/2s, and in the late game, we're flipping up Offender at Larges for a bunch of extra damage, or Greenbelt Radicals to completely end the game. The one kind of flaw of this deck is we're a bit low on combat tricks. We do have double Offender at Large, or sorry, triple Offender at Large, filling that role at 5 mana. Kind of a lot of mana for a combat trick, but it is kind of a double combat trick because it buffs itself and another creature, which is cool. And then we have Greenbelt Radicals flipping up to just demolish our opponent in the endgame, which is sort of a combat trick, but also just a finisher. So pretty cool stuff when we get to really high mana costs. So again, one flaw, could have used some more combat tricks over just all this cheap burn to get things out of the way, but this cheap burn is perfectly fine as well. So that is the deck we're playing today. We'll see how it all plays out as we head into round 1. All right, here we are on the play for game 1 of round 1. Got that turn 1 Mask Maker with 1 face down we could play if we want, but we could also just play it as a face up 3/2, which might be better. Yeah, and I also have to consider just playing Reckless Detective this turn to try to draw into some mana, which I think is likely what we got to do here. Leering Onlooker from our opponent. Well, that stops us from really getting in here, but it doesn't kill any of our creatures on the attack at least, so we can still send in. What do I need to ditch here? Certainly one of the really expensive cards. Probably Greenbelt Radical. Pretty unlikely we get to that 7 mana, although Gossip does hit 2 mana towards it, which is nice. And it is castable as a face-down 2/2. I think I still ditch it. There we go. There is land 3. Perfectly reasonable here. Our best play now being the face-down Performer, so that we can instantly flip it up and get damage off of it as well. It's pretty sweet. There's a face-down of theirs, so they can trade into our face-down or kill our Mask Maker. But now we have the mana to just play face-downs anyway. And there's 4 mana for the Gossip. Tempting. Quite tempting. Could double block Reckless Detective here, I guess. Trade it into a face-down. Don't hate that. Think I'd rather play... Would I rather play a 4/4 Vigilance or 2 2/2s? With an Offender at Large coming up, 2 2/2s to spread the board out and then use the trick anywhere is pretty nice. I might ditch the Gossip, because it's pretty bad against 1/1 removal, and our opponent's on black-white, and black has a million 1/1 removal spells in this format. That's not even to mention what they could have in white, so... I'm actually gonna spread out here, go wide with Person of Interest. Over going tall with the Tin Street Gossip. Okay, cool. We are just going to trade into the face down. Fair enough. If I kill the onlooker here, I will trigger the case, but I can also definitely trigger the case next turn anyway. Maybe even play the case and the offender at large if we find land 5. So then we could get a Mask Maker attack. Well, this board we get a Mask Maker attack still. Ditch this one. Mildly worried about a board wipe here. Okay. I mean, they get tapped bats off of this card. I think I kind of need to just go all in and try to find lethal next turn. If they board wipe, they board wipe, but I think they would have just used it last turn. It's 4 mana, destroy all creatures. Because they have a creature that has an ability in the graveyard anyway, so they could have just cashed it in last turn and it would have been super worth it. There's a 5 mana board wipe out of black that they could have, and they wouldn't have afforded that last turn, so I guess this plays bad against that. Reckless Detective. Number 2. Alright, well, we're just having a flip party here and hoping it kills them. They probably just block the face down and take 7 and live. But it is still worth a flip. Woo! Guess I buff the Mask Maker because that would be the card I care about the least at this point. Alright, Auspicious Arrival's not a bad one for them to have, but they are still down to 3. So we see Dog Walker. So black-white like go wide aggro. They've got on the job. They have multiple cards that are making 2 creatures off 1 card. Dog Walker's 3 tokens total, or 3 creatures total. Onlooker is 1 creature and 2 more once it ends up in the grave. Just trying to keep track of what kind of stuff they're playing and discarding here, because Arena's had this glitch lately where you don't get to look at the battlefield after the game. Well, that's just lethal. Yeah. All right, let's see if we can look at the battlefield. Nope, that's still not fixed. Okay, so they're black-white go wide. They have Dog Walker, a Leering Onlooker. They've got an on the job. That means they probably have more token production in their deck. We could run Pick Your Poison against the enchantment-based removal. It's also fine against the 1/3 flyer. Not like great, but fine. So these are options, the 2 Pick Your Poisons. Don't think Felonious Rage, more Mask Makers, Bystanders, any of these other cards look any good here. It's just maybe Pick Your Poison. But if we draw Pick Your Poison and they just don't play a Makeshift Binding, we basically mulliganed for nothing. So we never know. They could just have 1 Makeshift Binding in the deck and 1 Leering Onlooker, and those are the only targets for Pick Your Poison. There's definitely a risk here. I'm just going to gather more information here. We'll just run it back and save the Pick Your Poisons for later. Although I guess we're on the draw, so we could always cut a land for 1 Pick Your Poison. 16 land on the draw is pretty reasonable. But again, we've got like 5 and 7 mana stuff to flip in the late game, so it's not terrible. And the double Detective to get out of Flood too. No, I'm just going to run it back. All right. Fine opening hand. Here's our 1-2-4 curve. There's hard-hitting question to clear out the Fester Leech. We need to do that. I guess they could just play a land and pass, and then we don't get to attack in. Is he blocking as a 3/3? That's a mildly annoying, because hard-hitting question's a sorcery, so we can't respond to them buffing it. Ooh, tap land. Well, now I can't attack in. So that is sweet. They can't block, and we can attack. Okay, I'm not going to just kill that immediately. I'm going to get the face down going so we can just pile on with as much damage as early as possible. as we can. They mill Swamp Plains. Play land 3, play Teysa, which gives them a trigger thanks to having dealt damage to us. Alright, well, that is the biggest issue we've seen by a lot. And there's nothing I can do. I can 2-for myself to kill her, which I guess is worth it, because otherwise they're going to get a 1/1 flyer and a clue every single turn. Right? They crack the clue, hit me for 1 with the 1/1 flyer, get another clue. Crack that, they have 2 1/1 flyers, hit me, get another clue. Yeah, if we attack both here, we 2-for ourselves to kill the Teysa, or they just let all the damage through to play around something. Either way is fine for us. But it would honestly be better if we just get the Teysa killed, I guess. Yeah, awkward, but here we are. Teysa's way too good to not 2-for ourselves for. Okay, I'm really happy with that. We only lost the Mask Maker here in the end. That's nice. That is the better 2-for for us. Not that a 2-for-1's ever good. When it's in our opponent's favor. We lost the less important card. Makeshift Binding the Detective, that is pretty good. Alright, I'll put Pick Your Poison in. That's 2 games in a row we've seen it now, which makes it much more likely they have multiple copies to hit. Again, if I block Fester Leech, they just make it a 3/3 and win that combat. So, just keep attacking past each other. Two ships passing in the night, throwing creatures at each other's faces. Got an instant exile and attacking creature, and a ton of lands. Which explains why they've been missing land drops. I think they missed 2 land drops because they were on the play. And play a new offender at large or flip the first one. Attack with everybody to give them the option of blocking our face down. And if they block our face down, we'll flip the first. Actually, I'm probably supposed to flip the first either way. So that I get value off the enter the battlefield effect of this one when I play it. Yeah. Yeah, if I wanted to play the one in hand, I had to just pre-combat that, and that would have been really bad if they then blocked my face down offender, so this was the better line, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we're definitely throwing Pick Your Poisons in if this goes to another game. Doesn't look super likely too, because this offender at large is going to be really good here. It's got a lot of damage still coming in. Holding on to this mountain in case they have Unscrupulous Agent to make me exile a card from my hand. Novice Inspector. More good value for them. Couple clue tokens sitting there. There's a face down, so they can triple block my 5/4 and then lose their entire board. More importantly, they can double block Person of Interest and just lose a 1/2 if they block like that. But that means Offender at Large gets a good kill, so I think we still send the whole team in. That means Offender at Large puts them to 1 or makes them chump block if they go for the kill on Person of Interest. Sure. Seems good overall. I'm not going to block here. This just opens up their combat tricks to being able to stop some damage for them. They got the Macabre Reconstruction into Teysa. It'd be solid. They get another clue and then they trade into Offender, take 4, go to 2. Is that how the Macabre Reconstruction works? I don't know. I've never actually played with or against the card. Outside of using it for 4 mana, I guess it's 2 mana if a creature, yeah, if a creature was put there from anywhere. So yeah, play the Teysa here for sure, yeah. So they go to 2 life and trade into our bigger creature. We still got to just put them to 2, so Shock is lethal off the top. As well as any of our Greenbelt Radicals to flip up for trample. Cool. Guess I will just play land 7 at this point. So that they can't unscrupulous agent my 7th land if I do top deck a Greenbelt Radical, because then I want 7 mana available to flip it the turn after I play it. And they could always like murder Tin Street Gossip and then unscrupulous agent my last land and then can't draw into goodies. 3 to a creature an opponent controls, and then I'll hit them. Well, I won't hit them, but I will hit with 2 of my other cards, which means the case will be solved. Yep, flip the Dog Walker, cool. Pay the ward. And here's 2 more sources of damage to get the triggers. They have to chump block. Go to 1. Now I get to dig next turn. Another Novice Inspector. Their deck is really nice. They've just had some awkward draws. Multiple Novice Inspectors, a Teysa for a bomb, multiple Makeshift Bindings for great removal, the Neighborhood Guardian with Dogwalker as well. Great combo that can sneak a lot of damage in. Frantic Scapegoat. They can still block all 3 of our creatures. That's not quite lethal, so let's see what we get off of the case. Greenbelt Radical for the trample flip eventually will kill them. But it is suspected, right? Yeah, so hard-hitting questions kills them immediately. So they can only block 2 of these 3, thanks to Menace. And there's the concession from our opponent. Really unfortunate game for them. Again, like, they were pretty stuck on mana here. They had so much value off these clues if they could just hit the lands. They just kept milling a ton of lands. I think they've got a lot of really high card quality in their deck. They definitely had to run some filler to stick in black-white, it looks like. Probably because white was pretty contested like it always is. So, like, you know, Repeat Offender is not the greatest. But I think Macabre Reconstruction makes sense for their deck, even though I don't think it's super good. Same with Crowd Control Warden. Not super good in a vacuum, but pretty good in their deck. And they had a lot of cards which are super good, period. Like Novice Inspectors, Multiple Bindings, Teysa, Dogwalker, Festerleech is decent, Neighborhood Guardian's great. Yeah, real solid deck from them, but just really rough draws overall. Is going to give us the victory. 2-0. That is a victory for round 1. Here we are for round 2. We're going to be starting on the draw in this round. Really nice hand here. Probably starting with Reckless Detective again. Make sure we don't get any flood. Although we do want to make it to 7 mana with 2 copies of Greenbelt Radical, so... we just start with a 3-2. Detective's a lot more likely to be able to attack in, because if they just play a 3 mana 2-2 face down, Detective can attack in as a 2-3, but Performer just trades, which is certainly worse. We might be hard casting one of these Radicals face up just to keep the pressure on here. I think I will do some card filtering. Ooh, never mind. We're playing a Buzz Crusher next turn. No, my Reckless Detective. Face up 3-2 or a face down Radical are the 2 options I think are best here. I think I'm going to go face down Radical for mana efficiency. We definitely don't want to go face down Performer there. If we're going to play a face down, just play one of the 2 radicals since we have a backup if the first one is dealt with. There's a face down from our opponent. There's a case. We need 5 mana to actually use that, though. Because of the ward. Oops, I lose. GG. Yep. Our only shot is that they block here. This is our last opportunity to do anything about it because they can just give hexproof to it every other turn. They can give lifelink to it every other turn and we will never race them. Yeah, that's bad. I don't even think I case here to kill this to try to draw a card because there's nothing we can draw to kill 5/5. We definitely put Pick Your Poison in here. That's actually really good against Azram. If we can get them to have only 1 flyer on board when they try to do it again. Probably Killer Among Us, desperately trying to outrace them. It's the most power we can put on this board. I actually saw a post on Twitter, a poll about what they make the killer, and Merfolk is the most popular by a lot, so I think people are used to Merfolk being the killer, so we'll shake it up with human. Shake it up with the human here. Help disguise who the killer is. We'll do Goblin next time. Welcome to my face. And they're going to go back up to 19 because Azram is a fair magic card. Quit looking at my merfolk. Did you see that? They're like, oh, blue is sus. I see you. I see you. I don't think the whole counterplay really matters here because whatever they're going to have to deal with this is probably just going to be like a bounce spell that they can use at instant speed anyway. If it's sorcery speed removal, you just kill the 4/4 flying trampler. You don't need to kill a 4/4 death touch. There's just a better target. So it's probably just going to be a bounce spell on the human when we try to put the counters on her. Karlov Watchdog. We cannot flip during their turn, but that's fine. I'll just have to try to remember that. I could just case of the Burning Masks that. I really wish I had one more red source, but I don't. So I can't case and play a creature, which is rough. Which is part of where the double red becomes a liability on this case. I feel like we're attacking with enough damage that they have to lose a creature and not attack us with 3 creatures next turn if I just play Offender at Large, so I'm going to do that. Okay, well, the way I attacked here looked a little suspicious. Because I was thinking maybe I shouldn't attack with just the 1/1, but if I attack with them all, they don't know which one is just the 1/1. But because the way I ordered it, maybe they will realize I was considering not attacking with the merfolk. Which means the merfolk is just the 1/1. I mean, if they survive this attack, which they will, even if they don't block at all, then they crack back for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. If they have removal for our untapped Defender at Large. Looks like they are going to do some blocks here, though. Alright, fair enough. Yeah, we use this for the extra damage. How do I see? It is human, okay. I was like, I think I chose human. That is anxiety-inducing. I don't like that it doesn't tell you when you're clicking on it. That would be really nice of them. Alright, so our opponent's going to be up to 15, and we only have 14 power on the board, but Pyrotechnic Performer could get 3 more damage in. If they have makeshift binding, the game is super over. Because they clear out 5 of our power and gain 2 life. But if they have just absolutely nothing but gain the life, maybe we get there? Or if they just try to play like 1 blocker and we can case that away. Like, it is going to take 3 more hits for them to kill us. Ooh, that's really good. The stun here. Man, I do think I should have discarded a card to the Reckless Detective early in this game so that we get the 2 damage swing in. It is looking real bad that we ditched that land because a 6th mana next turn to play a face down and use the case would be a big deal. Yeah. It's not good. We cannot do that. 10 life here. Fairly confident that we have to kill the Crime Stopper sprite. There's too much that could kill us on the crackback. And they can just choose not to block here. I guess I could attack first, and if they choose to chump, we could do something different here. Don't think they will, though. I'm just going to use this.
Together, we are unstoppable.
Ooh, somebody followed the stream. Thank you for the follow. Got the audio on when I'm on OBS, but I don't have the visuals. I don't know who it was right now. That's what happens if you randomly hear a Johnny talking in one of my videos where no one's casting in a Johnny Planeswalker. Alright, we've got a lot of ways to try to sneak in the next few points of damage if they don't just kill us this turn. Pyrotechnic Performer flips up and finds extra damage. Offender at Large gives somebody +2/+0. Get a sneaky lethal here. Attack with everybody and then, oops, 3 more damage from Performer. We can case to dig for another land so that we can... I guess there's not really any other options we gain from that, but we can do it. All right, has the Vigilante, I think, is a victory for us. Depending on what they have available for a single white mana, like, they have to block a 5/4 and a 4/4, take 5, and then, oops, Pyrotechnic Performer wins. I think that's the safest way to do it, rather than just present lethal on board. Try to trick our way into lethal here. All right. Oops, actually I win. Get out of here, Ezram. And maybe even if we didn't lethal them that turn, we would have won, because they still couldn't attack there. Oh, I was trying to look at the battlefield again. That's on me. That's not allowed anymore. Well, we outraced Ezram, so do we want pick your poisons? We didn't see a single makeshift binding. We did see Crime Stopper Sprite, so this would still be 1 mana removal to clear out Crime Stopper Sprite. Maybe pick your poison over hard-hitting questions. Maybe that's a thing. Keep the shock, though, because direct 2 damage to face would have been nice that game, too. I'm going to swap one out. 1 question for 1 poison. And see how it works out for us. Heading into game number 2. Ooh, mono red hand. Let's go. Ooh, Reckless Detective. Let's go. It's the same hand. Let's go. Opponent obviously on the play since it is game 2 and they lost game 1. That is a beautiful draw. We're just going to get looting first. I think it's worth giving up on the extra point of damage here. It also gives us better attacks into 2/2s. That I'm just going to blow up so that Detective can get in without dying yet. Yeah. And then we discard this Mask Maker at this point of the game. This card's really only good like turn 1. So I think it's fine to ditch it here. And then play Buzz Crusher next turn. Cool. 5th mana towards Radical. We're actually not that great at getting a wide board state this game, so we don't know if Case of the Burning Masks is going to trigger because we used it this early, so that's the one flaw with running it out to clear a path for Detective. Is that, like, we don't get any value from it having dealt damage. It's not one of the 3 permanents towards solving it now. Okay, this time we'll ditch a land. I need another green source, and I have to ditch something to actually get power here. Ooh. Well, if they don't trade, I just hard-hitting question now. But I kind of just want them to trade, because Watchdog is a good card. Okay, they didn't trade. So... yeah, no Buzz Crusher. Let's just kill that. Perfect mana to drop that down now and still play Buzz Crusher and flip it next turn. Get the extra 3 damage out of it. It won't work with this, though, because it'll just have dealt damage twice next turn. It'll have dealt damage as a 3/2 and dealt damage with the direct damage 3 fling. That's still just one source having dealt damage to my opponent. It just dealt the damage twice. Do they have the evidence for that? I don't think so. Wait, no, what did they... oh, they do. Never mind. Stun the Reckless Detective. Fair enough. Yeah, so now it's just going to be one of my cards dealing damage this turn. Do I hate trading here? Not really. The trade's fine. I mean, like, I'd get extra damage off the Performer later with Radical, but they also have to consider that it could be a Fender at large and I just win this combat and subsequently win the game. They saw like 2 Offender at larges last game, so they really have to consider not blocking. Awesome stuff. Great work done by the threat of being an Offender at large. And here's the Buzz Crusher, or as I like to call it, Buzz Cruncher. I don't know why, but that's what I kept calling it early in the format. Buzz Cruncher. Case of the Gateway Express. Goodbye, Performer. You tried. You did a lot of damage. You did well. I appreciate that. Alright, ditch a Mask Maker looking for land 7 to just absolutely wipe my opponent off the map. Seems very legit. Oh yeah, let me sack my Buzz Crusher real quick. Oh wow, another Detective. So we just slam everything on the board too. They're gonna go for the 2-for-1. Nice. I mean, they do have to deal with that card. They do. Detective and a Radical. Top deck land 7. And things are about to get tubular. We're going a step above Radical. Things are going to get tubular. Actually, wait, no, then the Detectives are 0 power if I play this. Oh. I guess I don't flip the Radical then? So that I hit for 6? I mean, I hit for 6 either way. I don't actually know here. Well, there we go. Gadget Technician's perfect. Now I can sack an artifact to the first Detective and discard a card to the second one, and then flip the Radical with land 7 next turn, if we hit it. Okay, make my 2/2 a 1/1, sure. They're down to 3. My Case is ready. My Technician gives me a wide board. Even if they board wipe us, we get to draw the best card out of the top 3 to find just a 3-power creature to kill them afterward, and there's the concession from our opponent. Yet another 2-0 victory against a deck I think is pretty dang good. Nice little blue-white Detective deck. I mean, they just didn't have a lot of cheap creatures to stop aggression, and that's where we really came in hot and outraced the Ezram. Yeah, kind of just had a better mana curve. That's all there really was to it. I mean, we obviously didn't see their whole deck. Maybe they got pretty unlucky and all the 2-drops were on the bottom, but like outside of that, outside of not playing a lot of cheap creatures to block early, everything in their deck's a great card. Solid blue-white deck, so great work from green-red Disguise aggro yet again. Now, no matter what, we are at least 2-1 out of this traditional draft, so nice above average record, more wins than losses. But we'll see if we can't take down the trophy as we head into the final battle, round number 3. Here we are on the play for round 3, starting things off turn 2. Great start. The detective helping us dig for the lands that we pretty desperately need for the hand. We do have 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, 5-drop, really good curve, but we don't have the lands to play all these cards yet. We also specifically need a red source if we want to remove something with this case. So detective can go a really long way here if it's not instantly killed. Playing against the black deck. Well, there's the perfect card to discard to Reckless Detective. Please do not play the sack a creature card on me. Well, it's not the sack a creature card. And there we go. One removal spell does take down this hand pretty bad if we didn't draw land in our first 2 draw steps, and we didn't, so. Lost a couple coin flips, and that's pretty bad. Now I want to win like 3 coin flips in a row because I don't have the detective to give me extra coin flips towards the lands. There's our first victory on the coin flip. Means I get to scapegoat plus face down here because I don't want to kill their suspected skeleton. Then they get to pull the best card out of their deck. Another creature enters the battlefield, you may suspect it. Okay, but I don't give it haste or anything, so. Cool. Just double checking. I will not suspect. I might suspect the Buzz Crusher, then that'll be like impossible to block. Okay, well there's our target for our case. They are bold here, they are going for the out aggro. I kind of want a case here, but just playing a Buzz Crusher is also very good. Actually, I need to Buzz Crusher here, because if I don't, they can sacrifice the skeleton to kill one of my creatures, and then their case is solved too, so we need to make sure that just doesn't happen. We need to make it harder for them to get rid of their skeleton. Snarling Gorehound. Doesn't affect things too much. Does surveil a lot for them. Vengeful Tracker is just a 2-mana 2/2 against us. We don't have any clues, basically. That only triggers when we sacrifice artifacts. So even if they kill Buzz Crusher, it doesn't trigger. Because it's sacrifice and not when it's destroyed. Okay. Killer Among Us seems slightly better than Buzz Crusher here, because it gives us blockers at the same time, but there's also the chance that just flipping up Offender at Large is really good. Depends on how they want to block here. Alright, flipping up Offender at Large is very good. They're down to 8, we're at 12. They've got 5 damage on board, we've got 6 on board. They get the first attack here, but I think we're slightly in the lead. Could really be anyone's game depending on what kind of burn we've got, what kind of burn they've got. But not looking good for them if they are going to crack the red herring rather than keeping it for damage. Galvanize? Ooh, that explains that. That's really good, actually. kill my 5/4. Alright, alright. Get that Killer Among Us for the wide board state of blocks here. Also threatening a lot of damage next turn. I think that is the play. Scapegoat can't block anyway, so send it on in. Choose the Goblin this time around. We choose the Human last time. We're not going to suspect anybody. We want these all to be able to block if necessary. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have played that land, because now they could Unscrupulous Agent us, and it would be pretty annoying. But by playing the land, I could Buzz Crusher and play a land off case and play a 3-drop if we top deck a 3-drop. 7 life. We need to find 4 extra damage. That could be a trick and a shock here. But if I lose any creatures, I'm not cracking back for lethal. If I keep my whole board, I am. Hitting for exactly lethal. Feels a tiny bit too risky. Not killing the skeleton though still. Okay, there's the case, so there goes the goblin. You know what would have been a next level play? If I put the human and the goblin there and then they killed the human. If they killed like the wrong one there, that would have been so good. Okay, 1 card in hand. I think we can still do this. Perfect mana to Tipster plus Buzz Crusher. They can only use the case at a sorcery, and it's not solved until their end step, so I am going to double block the skeleton next turn. I think their case is solved too, so they do get to draw a card. Put them to 6. Lethal them with 2 1/1s and a 4/4 flyer next turn is the plan, hopefully. Doing some digging. Something swamp swamp. Onlooker? Well, that's a flying blocker. That is a flying blocker. Still trample over for 1. No, I do kind of wish I had suspected the Buzz Crusher. But I figured having a flying trampler is a good evasive threat, and a scapegoat for menace is 2 evasive threats, which is nice. Blocking here so I don't die to the +3/+0 first strike trick. We could try to do that. Oh no, removal? That's just GG if they have removal too. Removal plus onlooker plus case is solved now. Maybe they're just looking over the board. I just always get antsy when our cards getting highlighted. Okay, they're just looking over the board. It's a 2/2 on the ground for now. Case is solved. Kin Street Gossip is the draw. That doesn't insta-kill them, so we look and see if we can find something that does. Case of the Burning Masks puts them to 1, which is not 0. Pyrotechnic Performer. They have to block there, get trampled for 1, take 1. So they take 2 and go to 4, puts them to 1, which is not 0 also. But then I have 1 more creature on my board. Guess that's better? Probably. They could also just like punt it away if they don't block, but yeah, there they go. So now any disguise card we draw is lethal. I'm gonna keep it as a blocker so they can't tutor for +3/+0 and kill me. I'm gonna wait to flip it so it keeps the ward for now. So we're gonna put them to 1 with the 1/1 menace on board. And a 4/4 flying trample. Let's see what they've got. Do they have a lethal spell to grab for 3 mana? That was kind of quick. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. Make sure that if they tutored for the combat trick, we're not dead. There's a concession. They probably tutored for the combat trick for the +3. Something like that. All right, close battle there. They are Rakdos Suspect, so a lot of cheap creatures in black and red, a lot of suspected stuff for Menace. Felonious Rage is probably not terrible here, but I don't think anything in our deck is. I think everything in our deck is just as good as anything in the sideboard, really, for the most part. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a close battle, but I'm happy with the main deck we have for this matchup. Let's run it on back. Solid opener here, Mask Maker and Tipster to really get the mana to do some crazy stuff. Opponent is on the play. Starting with that turn 1 Gorehound. Let's get the Mask Maker down. That's the only thing we can do for 1 mana right now. Turn 2, it's our friend the Red Herring. They're going to jam for 3 immediately. Yeah, on the play, jamming for 3 damage turn 2 is quite threatening. I can kill the Gorehound and cast nothing else this turn. Or play the Tipster to set up a Buzz Crusher turn 3. Or just play a Fender at large now. And Case of the Burning Masks next turn. I kind of like just going for removal next turn, where it's better to just play a 2/2 right now. Setting up for a turn of removal of some kind. If we hit the forest, we can go Tipster plus Question, which is really good. So really hoping to hit the forest. Could trade here on blocks. Definitely an option since they're on the aggressive. Okay, we can Tipster and hard-hitting Question here, but also I can just naturally play Buzz Crusher next turn anyway. So I think I just case this 3/3. They have 3 power on board, we have 3 power on board. They're definitely hitting us faster, but we'll be hitting bigger soon. Or hitting harder soon. I'm sure they will too, but we've got a hard-hitting Question for their first big creature to clear out if it's 4 toughness or less. Torch the Mask Maker, sure. Alright. They get a clue, so they get a 2 for 1 there, but it's a 1/2 that died, so it's a-okay. We never actually saw the combat trick game 1, so do we just block the Red Herring here? Never mind. That answers that question. Down to 8. If I just kill the Red Herring, we're facing a single creature. But also, that's a draw. And now I can just have a 5/4 blocker up for it and hit for 4 in the same turn, so that's better. And I am just going to block the Red Herring if they attack with it. We never actually saw the +3/+0 first strike trick, so I'm not going to play around it here when they're forced to make that attack. Okay. It's gonna be close. Lots of removal here. We're down to 5. Another hard-hitting question. I think I have to do that this turn. So 1 mana play, so Case can hit anything for 4 or less, and we can do that too. Oh. Well, I think we take another Case then. Play that and a Tipster this turn. I can't take the Offender because I need 1 mana to hard-hitting question. I guess I could take it and play it face down. And double hard-hitting question this turn. They have no creatures on board and we have 2 Offenders. Maybe that is the line. That's actually pretty interesting to me. Pretty enticing. I'm out of stuff now, but they are out of board to try to kill me with at my 5 life. It's a Judith. Well, luckily they have 0 good blocks. They can die, or we can kill Judith for free and hit them for 4. If we did that the other way around, flipped this one and buffed it, they would have went to 1. The they can die was referring to if they just didn't block here. And since both of those are Offender at larges, whichever one they block is the same thing. We kill Judith, put them to 4, so. Alright. Well, this deck was better than I thought it was. I think it was a really solid green-red deck, but I didn't expect the 3-0-6-0 sweep. We didn't drop a single game of Magic today. Incredible stuff from this Radical deck. I don't think we ever even flipped the green belt Radical, but that's fine. That's fine. That just means we were too fast, too furious, too good at killing our opponent with our other stuff. Yeah, I mean, the deck was sweet. It's what the green-red strategy wants to do. You want to curve out efficiently with a lot of creatures and have the cheap removal to clear a path. I do think having combat tricks like the +3/+3 trample instead of cheap removal is a super viable way to build this deck that is still pretty powerful, but seeing the fact that we 6-0'd this and didn't lose a single game, I guess we don't actually need the combat tricks like I was considering during the draft. That was the biggest flaw in the deck when I was talking about the deck overview, and it didn't matter. Offender at larges as combat tricks were plenty more than enough in the end game, so yeah, I mean, it was a pretty lucky draft all around. We hit some pretty good stuff throughout, and a couple of our opponents got pretty unlucky, mainly the black-white opponent. I think their deck was real nice, and they just hit awkward curves. I think our final round opponent, they had solid curves too. They were really close games. We just got slightly quicker aggro, slightly better draws there, and the blue-white matchup, we just slightly outraced them there as well. But yeah, certainly our first win, we just got, and not that we got super lucky, just our opponent got super unlucky. But yeah, deck overview, overperformers, underperformers. I mean, I didn't love the Mask Makers going in, and they played out fine. They weren't incredible, they weren't terrible, so just a normal performer there. Tipster was a bit of an underperformer. I don't think we ever got any value off of this. We never tapped it for mana. We never got a +1/+1 counter on it. It kind of sat in our hand being awkward a couple games where we just wanted to curve out with more aggressive creatures. This isn't really a good Tipster deck, even though it is a green-red deck that's playing a lot of disguise stuff. It's so aggressive that it's hard to justify playing a Mana Dork or a 1/1 with our mana when we could just be playing beefier creatures that are hitting in for damage. So Tipster was actually the biggest underperformer, not because it's a bad card, but because it doesn't actually work very well in this deck. And for the biggest overperformer, I guess, Frantic Scapegoat. It only did stuff in like one game, but it was pivotal in getting enough extra damage to outrace the Rakdos deck. It was a very close game of Magic, so the fact that I don't like this card very much and didn't really want to take it that highly or play it really, and then I ended up being like, it's another 1-drop, try it out over a third Mask Maker. I guess that means it's an overperformer because I was very much considering just leaving it in the sideboard. So that'll be the overperformer here, and basically everything else performed about on par with what we imagined. I guess you could say Radical's an underperformer. That was a 3-mana 2/2 every game. We never flipped it. Yeah, I guess that's a better underperformer than Tunnel Tipster. Although Tipster, I think, was just genuinely maybe not a good card to throw in this deck. Radical just underperformed because of when we drew it, really, or how much lands we drew. I don't think Radical's a bad addition to this deck. I think it's perfectly solid in here as a finisher. Tipster, I think, genuinely might just not be a card we want in this deck, so I think that still wins the underperformer reward. Anyways, that is it for the draft. We're going to get our incredible, incredible prizes, and that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching the video. If you're interested in seeing some more videos like this, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.